You're welcome back. Let's have the details now. Energy Minister Boakye Agyarko has stated that the Greater Accra region will need 3 more substations to enable the national's capital experience stable power supply. The country has endured some level of interrupted power supply for years now without an end in sight. Speaking on measures that his ministry is putting in place for attaining and maintaining regular power supply, Mr. Agyarko stated the substations are a requirement. He has added that the Ashanti regional capital, Kumasi, will also need 2 bulk supply stations to enable residents enjoy stable supply.
To put one substation in Greater Accra is $25 million US. Greater Accra alone needs 3 of such. Looking at the investment requirements of the utilities, we are talking of over $1 billion in total. The opportunities, therefore, are in the investment of the distribution networks, the billing and collection of electricity bills, and more importantly, when we privatize the last mile, that's the retail competition. The last mile, the supply is between the pole outside your house and your meter. There's a lot of business there which, when privatized, will draw a lot of people into. On our gas supply and for power generation, as I said, we ought to make a clear decision on the end use of gas. Is it all for power? Are we putting some in petrochemicals, such as refineries, such as plastics? Are we putting some in agrochemicals, such as production of urea and fertilizer?
Mr. Boakye Agyarko there, the Minister for Energy. Now, we're all aware that the challenges in power supply have been attributed to poor distribution. Now, the Millennium Development Authority, for instance, has described power distributing companies, which consist of the Electricity Company of Ghana, the Northern Electricity Department Company, and the Enclave Power, as the weakest links among the power supply chain. In response, Mr. Boakye Agyarko revealed government is considering the establishment of a generation load in the Ashanti and Brong-Ahafo regions to balance load distribution and grid stability.
As we move in this direction, we also need to understand the need to move part of our gas up country. For example, it is important to establish a generation load in the Ashanti Brong-Ahafo region in order to properly balance the load distribution and the grid stability. We also need to start piping gas all across the country if we are supposed to move from wood fuels, charcoal, wood fuels, and what have you, into LPG. Construction of such critical infrastructure will be a good business opportunity for those who care to invest.
The minister also revealed the introduction of a master plan to properly align all issues of the power sector. Now, we're able to join our correspondent Elton John Brobe, who is at the International Conference Center, just as the summit comes to an end. He's able to engage some of the participants, including Deputy Minister for Information. Elton, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, Kojo.
Right. Now, so you have with you Mr. Kojo Nkrumah, who's the Deputy Minister for Information. Now, as the summit comes to an end, let's get some of his thoughts, shall we?
Right. So it's been 2 days of, looking at some of the policies of government going into their 4-year mandate. And as we heard from the Information Minister and the Senior Minister, quite excited about what has been discussed from yesterday till now. Moving forward, they want to see, implementation of some of the things that were discussed. So maybe in 3 months' time, we may come back here to review some of the things that were discussed yesterday and today. Let me speak to Kojo Nkrumah, who is the Deputy Information Minister, about his impressions so far. Kojo, 2 days of looking into government plans and policies for the next 4 years. How's it been so far for you as a deputy minister and someone who put together this?
Let me start by thanking you and many of the other media houses and our partners who have actually helped us to put it together. I think God has been good to us in the last 2 days. We've had so many people that we've had to bring in extra chairs to fill the halls, from the main hall even to today's side meetings. The reason for which we designed this, as was mentioned by my minister, is to create a platform for engagement between government and citizens on the policies and programs of government, so that citizens and the private sector can see themselves in it, know how and where to participate. And in the last 2 days, government actors, key government actors have been brought together. We've been amazed at the enthusiasm of the Ghanaian community coming to engage, ask questions, even offer counter solutions. You saw the energy conversation, which got very heated because stakeholders had some views that they brought in. It's been good. We are now at an implementation stage, but we want to keep the doors open so that we get gradual feedback as we go along to improve what government is doing. And so as we end this National Policy Summit on the economy, this one is just on the economy, we have subsequent ones on different sectors, but as we end, we announce to everybody's hearing that the Client Service Unit of the Finance Ministry is open. Come for a regular engagement so that we can serve you better as a government.
Some are even questioning the relevance of this particular summit, which just ended, and the fact that we've had a budget. The president was in Parliament to present the State of the Nation address in detail. The budget also gave clarity to some of the issues that, as a government, you would do from now till when the mandate expires. So, question is, was this necessary to re-echo some of the things that have already been said by the minister through the budget and the president during the State of the Nation address?
A budget is a platform for policy announcement. A budget doesn't tell you how and when some things will be done, and how the private sector, that is a productive sector of the economy, can play, where they tap in and play. A budget is for the announcement of policy. It is at the National Policy Summits that we are going to organize across this country for various sectors, that we are now going to take individual sectors and bring stakeholders together and show you firsthand how you get to play. Yesterday there was a session on IPEP, $1 million per constituency, and how it will be operationalized. So at the budget hearing, the minister will announce that we have allocated the equivalent of $275 million for IPEP to focus on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then he will move to the next paragraph. But now what does IPEP mean? How do you participate? What does it mean in my constituency? What are the timelines? How are we walking along? So it is through these policy summits that we now engage with the private sector and the public for them to see how they all participate and fit into it, and we work together. We don't want an old paradigm where government announces policies and throws it to people and says, but why are you not participating? We want to engage with people and also get feedback on a regular basis that government, nice policy, but this is missing, correct this. And that's what the senior minister said, that we don't want to wait till 4 years down the line that we start taking pictures around the country that this is what we tried to do for you. Haven't you seen it? No, we want to walk and engage with the Ghanaian that voted this government into power every step of the way so that we get feedback, so that we also show you what we are doing, and then we work together to achieve the objectives as outlined.
Your minister said that the information ministry is moving away from the position of being a propaganda wing of the government. What is the guarantee that some of the issues that we raise here will not end in another talk show, but we will see implementation and results when we meet here, maybe in the next quarter?
So what he meant was that we don't want to leave our ministry to be one ministry that is just there doing propaganda. We want to, key among our priorities, create platforms like this to allow engagement, to allow a partnership. Remember, the theme for this summit is a partnership for growth and jobs. So our ministry seeks to create platforms for partnership. But you also heard the senior minister say that not only a one-stop opportunity to talk, but we want to come back somewhere down the line so that the general public can ask the finance minister and the technocrats who have delivered all of these policies that you promised us this 1 year down the line, 6 months down the line. What are the results? Account to the people and let the people also give you feedback. Again, it will be our job as a ministry to create platforms for this engagement and feedback. And as my minister explains, that is where we envision it. That's where we want to go, because governance is for the people. And we must create some of these platforms, not just a press conference where we announce that, we have said this, but platforms like this where we can engage and account to the people and get feedback from the people as we go along.
Is it going to be an Accra event, or you hope to replicate this in the regions and the districts?
So next month, for example, the Minister for Trade and Industry in the industrial enclave in Tema, where industry is resident, will be engaging key actors in industry. There's a 10-part program, 10 different parts of the program for bringing back Ghanaian industry. What does it mean? How do people who want to do business in that sector participate? That one will happen there. We are hoping next month to go to Cape Coast for the National Policy Summit on Tourism. The Ghana Tourism Authority has a lot of policies and programs. The Ghana Tourism Development Board has policies and programs. There are major people who have invested in the tourism industry who want to know how to benefit from this, even want to give feedback. We'll go to Cape Coast and do that one. There are others that will take us around the country. Free SHS is coming somewhere in September. We are hoping to have a National Policy Summit on education, so that even though we have put together some major pillars, we bring key stakeholders together and they give us feedback while we explain to them how it works. So in the budget, the minister will say, we have made available the equivalent of $100 million to start free SHS this year, and it will cover 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But how does it work? How do you apply? What does this mean? What is the feedback? It is during that National Policy Summit on education where the key stakeholders will get into that space, because, as my minister said, we want to create platforms for engagement with the people. We govern not for ourselves, but on behalf of the people, and we must regularly engage with the people to share and get feedback so that we get better by the day.
All right. So, thank you very much. Few issues came up. The senior minister raised a number of issues. I'm sure that in the days to come, we'll come to you and then we'll discuss this issue. Ghana being included in the European Compact, the fact that over 107% of our revenue goes into 3 sectors: salary, interest payment, and there are so many issues that maybe in the days to come, we'll come to you, we'll seek clarity on some of them.
We are also very grateful to you. Don't go. Let me say thank you to you and the many other media houses that have also partnered us and have taken the message out. You could have spent your airtime discussing something that will move us forward, but you've spent your airtime focusing on a productive conversation like this, and we salute you.
Thank you very much. And that was Kojo Oponkroma, a Deputy Information Minister. So, Kojo, back to you in the studio, but few things came up, and I just want to re-echo some of the things that were said by the Senior Minister when he had the chance to, close this particular summit. Key amongst them was the fact that through his intervention, Europe, they fashioned their own compacts modeled on the American version. And Ghana was not originally included in the 4 African countries that were selected to benefit from this compact. He made a strong case for Ghana, and going forward, Ghana has been included, making it 5 African countries to benefit from this European compact. But one key issue that he also raised was the fact that the Bretton Woods institutions, the World Bank, the IMF, are not excited about flip-flop economic growth, and they want, some assurances that governments in going forward will ensure that fiscal discipline is maintained in the growth of our economy. And he made mention to the fact that there may be an amendment to the Public Financial Management Law passed by Parliament last year to ensure that the fiscal council that government is, promoting to be included in the bill is amended so that there will be fiscal discipline as far as managing our economy is concerned. When the energy minister had his turn to speak to the gathering, he also was quite clear on what it would take for us to have sustainable delivery of electricity uninterrupted, and the fact that we need about over $1 billion to ensure that the ECJ is able to stand on its feet well and deliver electricity to our homes. But we have to, do certain things right to get this done. I know that in the days to come and in the hours to follow, we'll have an extensive discussion on some of the issues that came up during these 2-day summits.
Thank you for that, Elton. Now, today was focused on energy. Recently, the energy minister has been talking about some serious inefficiencies that he has discovered in ECG's inability to properly collect revenue. Was there anything on that at the summit today? It would appear that we've lost Elton John Brobe there, but of course, as soon as we get the opportunity, we'll bring you even more from today's summit. But now to our previous story on energy with the Sector Minister, Boakye Jarko. Now, he says, from now on, power will be competitively procured through a standardized procedure.
All power will now be competitively procured. We will also use standardized procedures and documentation so that all the liquidity and security documentation that comes with power procurement will be standardized. Investor A faces the same standard documents as Investor B. It levels the playing field and it lowers the cost of transaction. Now to our transmission infrastructure. We will seek to prioritize the implementation of critical transmission infrastructure to ensure efficient power transfer of power from generation plants to load sectors. Those who are familiar with our national grid will recognize that it has critical weaknesses along the system. The Takwa and Soyem line is very weak.
Mr. Boakye Ejiakun there, the energy minister. Now, at the end of the summit, issues were wrapped up neatly by the finance minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, and the senior minister, Yao Osafo-Maafo.
The worry of the World Bank today, the Minister of Finance knows, is that all our compact that America did with us was to straighten the operations of ECG. Because the way we are going, we can't have a reliable source of energy to run this country. And without energy, there's no economy. Without energy, there's no economy. So we can't have a situation where all those who are producing the power in between are not paid for the services they render. And to make things worse, after they've borrowed the money, they don't pay the banks as well. So as I speak, if you take VRA's balance sheet and you look at the banks that have lent money to VRA and VRA have not been able to pay them, if you really do a net to net, about 4 or 5 banks collapse immediately on the grounds of the quality of their assets. Because the old VRA hasn't paid to them. And we continue to force these banks to provide LC to support VRA's operations. This is the situation we find ourselves. So let us do the things right. And let us pay the right prices for what we consume, no matter what, so that the institutions themselves operate profitably. It's important for us to have strong institutions, not strong individuals. Thank you.
Senior Minister, thank you very much. I think, you know, he just brings the perspective and grounds us. But I was interested in Abdul's question that debt is not the problem. And I mean, I guess I'm trying to understand how, if you earn 1,000 cedis a month and you use 700 cedis to pay your debt, and you've got 300 cedis left, and you believe that you have the luxury to borrow your way out of that because potentially you'll be able to use the new debt better than you have used it before. So I think it is true on a theoretical side that yes, well, you know, if you use it properly, but we are where we are, where we have 70% debt to GDP. There's no question about that. Some donors don't even want to talk to us until we have stabilized. So that's an issue, okay? So I don't want us as a nation to pretend that it's not a problem. And to even go to the genesis of the debt may even infuriate you more. Because at this juncture, part of the reason for the debt and the things we have to pay is that assuming we don't even produce any energy today, as Senior Minister is saying, because of the type of contracts that the previous government signed, the take-or-pay contracts, we have to pay $400 to $500 million a year, period. You don't get zero energy because we contracted in a very bad way what we have done. So the debt is real, and we have to retrain ourselves to be able to manage resources, okay? So that really is the issue we have to confront. And it is so real that between the debt payments our wages and salaries, and formerly the earmark funds, that becomes 107% of your revenue. So to say that it doesn't matter is really just kind of putting our head in the sand. We have to deal with it and then move to a debt sustainability basis where we have the luxury of doing that. So there is time for that, but as a people, we do have to reckon with that, you know. So this whole issue of the 5 pillars that we identified as revenue, expenditure, wages and salaries, the earmark funds, and the debt becomes things that we tackle individually and at the same time. Okay, so through bipartisan work, we were able to get the capping of the earmark funds so that instead of 40% of our revenues, it's now 25%. And that released 4.5 billion cedis for us to be able to do some growth issues, which is important for the private sector. In the same way that I mentioned that we have $2.4 billion of interest to pay. So we have to find a way to limit the short-term costs, just like Kwabna did. And Kwabna was now able to look at a 10-year scenario to pay the facility so that in between there, he can strengthen himself to be able to deal with the future which will come. And that is what we have done. It's not that we won't pay for it, but at least you have fiscal space for you to then support the private sector and to try and alleviate poverty, so that by the time we get to year 15, you know, we're a stronger nation and we can fool around. So those are just some hard realities and consequences.
You're still watching The Pulse. Now, when we come back in a few moments, I'll take you to Akosombo to tell you about the outcome of a meeting between the VRA and demonstrating residents of Akosombo over high power tariffs. Don't go anywhere.